Yeah. Steve, let me firstly say I'm going to come up there and shake your hand. I have this distinct pleasure of welcoming you to the stage. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Once again, a round of applause for Steve Wang. Yeah, it's really when you have an impact that goes that deep, you know, across so many different types of films and things, it's a really meaningful thing to have you here. So,
well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's very surreal because I know people will say these things to me, and I feel like I just got into business yesterday or something.
Right.
It's how fast time passed. Then you look in the mirror and realize you're getting old.
Well, you still look as good as ever. So under the hot lights here in the Hollywood hangar, I'll leave you to it. And if any questions have to come their way, I'll filter them.
Yes, absolutely. If anybody has any questions during, just raise your hand and Louis will call it. And,
yeah.
Because I can't see you that well from back here. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Let's get one more time a lot of noise for Steve. Everybody. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. I'm going to sit down here. So I'm the co-founder of Onyx Forge Studio. Can we put the screen on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, switch it.
Let's get that.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Onyx Forge Studio with my business partner, Cleve Gunderman. And we were known as Alliance Studio for a while, and then a few other iterations. As we try to find ourselves, our place in this business. My studio is an entertainment design and build company, and we basically, you know, I started out in doing makeup effects and creatures for quite a long time, and then afterwards I kind of got out of that and started doing video game statues. And you can see here, this is Jim Raynor. Whoops, sorry. Did this back in 2010, and this was kind of my first step into the whole digital world. And this was a model that was actually provided to us by Blizzard Entertainment. And so my task was to basically create like a life-size fiberglass version of this with a silicone head that would sculpt it. And with the help of my good friend Darnell Isom, who works at Legacy, he really kind of walked me through the whole process of how we have to make all these parts watertight. We have to cut it all up. There's the whole printing process. And then once we get all the parts back, then I kind of know from there what we have to do, which is all the molding and casting and all that kind of stuff to finish the statue. So I'm just going to show you a few the statues that we did over the years. This is Sylvanas for Blizzard. And again, she's mostly digital model provided to us by Blizzard. We end up going in and adding more detail and filigree and stuff onto the 3D model. And then the base is all hand sculpted. This is Jaina, same thing. She came to us as a digital model, so her whole body was printed and molded and cast. But then, like stuff you see like on her boots, oops, like these were transferred into clay, and then we went back and hand sculpted all this stuff. The head, same thing from the 3D model. We went back and we actually reworked it in clay and made a bunch of changes to it per their request. The water was actually all hand sculpted in clay. And the base and the costume was all handmade. This is probably one of my favorite pieces we've done for Blizzard. This is Arthas, the Lich King, and he is a 10 feet tall, real bronze statue out in Taichung City in Taiwan. And this was really fun. We had a 3D model to look at for the pose and whatnot, and to get a sense of scale. But this sculpture is entirely sculpted in clay. So it was all hand done. It took about 6 months for us to sculpt everything and put it all together. And the foundry that we actually hired, when they were budgeting this, they had no idea what the process was going to be. I had to actually tell them, okay, you're probably not budgeting this correctly because you're budgeting it by the foot. And I said, this thing, you have to imagine this is going to be in so many parts, like it's a real costume. And everything's going to have a lot of negative space and depth. And so it took us a total of about a year from start to finish it, and I'm really proud of this piece. This is a piece we did for Blizzard's campaign for Overwatch when they first launched Overwatch, and it was crazy. We had these 3 12-foot tall statues in 16-foot tall boxes, lights and sound, and they had to be this one here had to be in Hollywood, This one was in Busan, Korea, and this one was in Paris, and they launched live simultaneously. So aside from building it in a really short amount of time, the coordination of coordinating internationally with 3 different countries and all the different codes and the logistic teams and all the stuff to get it all done was insane. It almost came down to like a military precision kind of a process, and actually everything worked out well. All three teams. I stay here in LA to manage the team here. We had 2 other teams, and we all finished installation early and tore down, and the whole thing was a success. So Blizzard was very happy with this. This was for Riot Games. This is another one. Most of the Riot Games statues we've done are actually all hand sculpted, but I just thought I'd bring it just to show you kind of just a history of the stuff that we've done. This one here is also for Riot Games, Annie and Tibbers. Again, all hand sculpted, and then this is Ziggs for Riot Games. This is Lilith, and this is a combination of part digital, part traditional. And then this is for Red 5 Studios, who unfortunately is no longer around, but this was a campaign we did. This thing was a giant animatronic thing that actually was all timed on a computer. So once it wakes up, smoke starts to come out. It starts to open up. This hammer starts to go. There's sound effects. Everything's all synced up. And then it closes down, and then it resets, and it starts up over again. So that's just a brief history of what my studio has done in terms of like statues for game companies.
Just take a pause there, because there's an important thing that has to happen. Make a lot of noise.
Thank you.
Yeah, no small undertaking. I'll pause you to say no small undertaking. To move into a space of entrepreneurship like that is a big step, and also a beacon of hope for a lot of people to reach further in their lives. So
yeah, it was very interesting, because this was all new to me, and there wasn't, at least not to my knowledge, wasn't really a market for this kind of stuff, the statues, When I was approached by Blizzard back in 2004 to do it, they were like the first ones to say, hey, I really want to push this idea of making statues, and we can keep building on it. And eventually it took off, and then we started getting contacted by a lot of other game studios to say, hey, we want one too. So it kind of like sort of organically created its own market. Because I thought we'd do it a few times and it would just be done, but it just kept going and going. So what I'm going to show today is I'm going to show a project called the Miami Bull. It's a project we did about a little bit over a year ago for the city of Miami. It's an art installation. And it was an insane project. It was an 8-month project that we did in 4. And I'm talking about from 3D modeling all the way to on-site installation. And then we got hit with COVID in the middle of the project. So halfway through, I was sick for 2 weeks, and my wife and lost half my crew for 2 weeks until they recovered. And so we thought, like, for once, we're probably not going to make it, but somehow we got it done, because, failure is not an option, right, in our business. So I'll start with this video here, and then I'll walk you through the process. Oops, what's going on? Hang on a second. Sorry, why isn't this working? Huh, that's weird. This was working fine. Oh, here we go. Sorry, let me start over.
louder, louder, louder. Make those people at home regret not being here. Come on now, let's hear it.
Okay. Don't know why it's not working. It worked fine before. Oh, here we go. All right. So So the genesis of this project was, this is called the Wall Street Bull, and it's the symbol of finance in the city of New York. And I think this is a very iconic statue that everyone knows about. So the idea for this was, the inception of this idea came from an agency called the Small Agency in New York. And they had an idea that the city of Miami was going to be the new crypto capital of the world. So they wanted their own Miami Bull, their own Wall Street Bull, but they wanted something that was more high-tech and more like a Transformers kind of character. So, they contacted us and said, hey, we want to do something like this. It's the same exact size, same pose, but just modernized. Is this in your wheelhouse? And we're, of course, we never say no. We're like, of course it is, sure, we do this all the time. And then so this is artwork done by Furio Tedeschi, who I know most of you guys know of his work. He's quite an amazing designer and 3D artist. And he also has worked with us many times in the past. So this image was what inspired the Small Agency, the whole idea of the Miami Bull. They saw this and said, what if this was a bull version of it? And so they brought Furio in, and we all worked together for about 3 weeks. And so this is the final approved concept that Furio had done of the bull. And you can kind of see the size of how big he is. And a lot of people were complaining that there was no testicles and genitals on the bull, on the final bull. But there was. It's in the design, and in our original 3D model there was. But a decision was made by the company called TraceStation, they were the clients that we made this for. They decided that they wanted to not include that because it's somehow was always very controversial in the past. So,
I'm going to avoid any kind of commentary on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from this, Furio gave us his rough model, and then we had our own internal team in-house. And so what we did was I had three artists, and I have photos of all these. I have Julie Shaw, who's actually in the audience here with us.
Hey, round of applause.
She's our digital.
Yes, Julie.
Yeah, she's our digital department head and also a 3D modeler. And she's sort of like our in-house person that coordinates and interfaces with all our 3D artists. I do all the art direction, so I work with her and I work with the 3D artists a lot. We do it through Zoom, which is great because that allows us to do everything pretty effectively. So this is the final 3D model that we did, and it was a combination of Julie and Kyle Brown, who's also an amazing digital artist, and Daniel Alderson-Smith. And the way we had to do this, because the time was so tight, we only had a month to model this. And we had to basically, we did it completely from scratch, off of Furio's rough model. And we also, had to add a lot more detail to it and refine it and all this stuff, which is pretty standard, right, for 3D modeling, hard surface. So what I had to tell the client was, normally if there was a lot of time, we would model it completely, finished. So you can do a nice, beautiful turnaround and see it all together and then decide, okay, this is approved. We go into production on this. But because time was so tight, once we tweaked the final pose, I said, okay, when the pose is approved now, we're going to tackle this one piece at a time. So you're going to get a leg this week, and then you're going to get, part of a head or horns and this, whatever, and you're going to have to approve it piece by piece, and it's going to go right into printing. Because if we had to wait for everything to be done and start printing, we never would make the schedule. So there was a lot of logistic battles that had to be fought to just get it going to get to the end game.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's probably someone's going to ask this later, but let's just get it out of the way. Do you think that your reputation in industry allows you the space to have that trust with your client at this point?
I believe so, to some degree. I mean, a lot of the people that we work with usually are people I've never worked with before. They come to our website. They don't know what we've done. They just see our website and go, oh, a lot of fun, shiny things, But I don't really let that get in the way. I very much, every job I do, I have to educate the clients and give them a bunch of come-to-Jesus moments, And I do it very, very friendly, diplomatically. I just try to explain to them how things work. We just did a job for Mountain Dew, and it was the same thing. I literally had to explain to the clients, like, what their expectations I really had to manage. Because they were asking for stuff that would take, like, 6 weeks to do. They wanted it in a day. And I was like, no, that's not how it works, Right. And I had to literally do all this breakdown and show them photos, the process of how it's all it's all done. So once they understand the process, it was much easier dealing with them.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see this bull is 16 feet long, and he has at the highest point it's about 11 feet, and around the top of the back it's about 8.5 feet. So and then here's the turnaround of it. So yeah, I'm really proud of my team on this because we literally went around the clock, 7 days a week, and just to get things done, get it approved, the endless notes that they had to get from me, and I apologize for that. But
it's really clean on the back end there, by the way.
Yeah, it's you know.
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, like these are all the things I send to clients, you know, as we go. So this is the final finish. You can see he has a testicle here. Yeah, and he actually has a thingy here.
Steve Wang, it's very early in the morning.
I will be known for this for the rest of my life. Yeah.
There's a lot I could go with. A lot of material here, Steve.
Yeah. So
let's put the mic down.
So once that process is done, we had to like go out. You know, originally when we got quotes for printing all this stuff, it was all very manageable for the budget. And then once we finally finished the models and we cut it all up and sent it out, all of a sudden we ran into a big caveat where they're saying, oh, well, to print this, it's going to take 4 months. And I'm like, what? You can't take 4 months. That's my entire schedule. And then the budget was going to be like 3 times what they had quoted me, and it just became this crazy nightmare. You know, and so like parts like this, like smaller parts like this, I can get it printed, you know, and head and whatever. But the big body was the problem because from here to here it was already like 13 feet. You know, it was huge. And so in exploring a few different options of 3D printing, I just realized it was just not going to happen. We had to go back to the traditional route of CNCing in foam and doing all that fun stuff. And so that instantly like sort of educated us on you know, or informed us on the process that we had to partake. This is Julie here, in case those you can't see. I just wanted everybody to see the people, the artists behind this. This is Kyle. Kyle Brown, he's another magnificent talent. And then this is Daniel Smith. He's in New York, and he works with us remotely all the time. It's the first time that I worked with him, and man, boy, did he come through on this project. Everyone was just amazing.
He has a great mustache as well.
Yeah, this is a new picture. I don't think he had a mustache
I like it.
before.
Like a 1970s New York cop.
Yeah.
Pull over.
Yeah, true. So here's Julie standing next to some of the parts. You can see like some of the parts that were done in SLA. Anything that we could do in SLA, we did. And that's the resin prints. Here's parts of the head as it came to us. And then we also, like, here's a part of the body that's being CNC'd out of foam. I don't know, some of you may not be familiar with the process, but, you know, we basically, once we get the 3D model done, we just, in any way possible, try to get it into the physical world. So this is just one section of many sections for the body that had to be CNC'd. They come to us. I do it in 6-pound foam because it has a nicer, denser texture. We can go in there and sand it and polish it much better. So this was a process. Here are parts of his shoulders, and these parts get joined to the SLA parts. And then here's a size reference. This is just one of like maybe 5, 6 sections. You can see. So this is just the first half, front half of the bowl, not including the head. And then we glue it all together, and then we start to like coat it with urethanes and start this long sanding process. You can see right here in the back, I have Carlos here, spraying the urethane prime. And once that sets, we do a few coats of it, then we go in there and we have to body shop, sand everything like a car, and that is a really long and difficult process. It's not fun, and we do a lot of it. So you can see, and the prints don't come out this clean, actually. Once it's done, this is all, we go back in and we hand sculpt all the detail back in. So we had to do these really fast. We had about a week to do each of these large sections. So it was quite a bit of work to do them, just to get it all sharpened before we coat it and sand it.
Steve, you got one sliding in here online. They want to know, so the entire statue is made of plastic.
Yeah, it's made of a fiberglass called vinyl Leicester. They make boats out of them.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we had to address was that this was going to be installed at the Miami-Dade College campus, and it had to withstand 150-mile-an-hour hurricane winds.
And a lot of heat and humidity.
Yeah, a lot of heat, a lot of humidity. This thing had this coat of clear coat that was UV rated for 20 years. I mean, it was all like heavy duty stuff. The armature was engineered out of steel, all put together. So everything was engineered and approved and rated for.
And probably like a 1/4 inch of paint and prime, all that stuff on top of it.
Yeah, maybe not about, I don't know about 1/4 inch, but yeah, there's quite a bit of paint on there as well.
I'm an extreme fellow.
Yeah, and then you can see the it was just a lot of parts. Here you go, and it's just here's a little process of spraying the urethane prime.
Don't you find the sound of that paint gun satisfying? Isn't it?
Yeah, when I'm not doing it,
Right?
because what you're not getting is the horrible smell
Right?
that comes in. We have a big spray booth that sucks all the fumes out, but it's still horrible to spray.
That's like the phrase of the day. Watching that guy do it is one of life's greatest joys.
Yes, yeah. It's like work. I love work. I can sit and watch it all day. So here you can see we're doing the process. Some's been sprayed, some are still being cleaned up as we go, and all the seams are being patched. This is Cleve, by the way. This is my business partner. He's also, he and I are the two that are responsible for engineering everything and building. He's quite a talented builder. I mean, this guy's fearless. And we do, I'm very fortunate to have a partner this gifted and this, like, convicted and just an amazing talent. So you can see this is just one of the legs being put together. Our studio was not built to build big things like this, so all the hoists, everything we do it's all very much like a boutique studio trying to build something huge. But we do a lot of big stuff in my little studio.
I just want to tell you something. There's someone typed in here, Chris Wolf typed in, I think I found my dream job. So you've just inspired someone to go in a whole different direction in life. So.
Hold on to that dream until you see that. I didn't mention this, but this was, I've done a lot of jobs. And I've been in the business now 38 years. This job here made me rethink my career choice after I was done because it was so difficult. The logistics of this was so insane because of the lack of time. We had 4 months to do an 8-month project, and it was nuts. And we were going 7 days a week around the clock.
That's heavy. That's a heavy.
Yeah, it looks really fun, in photos and in videos. And when you see the final products, it's always really cool to see the final product. And even for us when we finish it. But I'll tell you, the hard work that it takes to do jobs like this, it's not glamorous. You're covered in fiberglass and dust and crap and sweat all day long wearing these Tyvek suits, and it's definitely a challenge.
You've had another immediate impact because Chris is now typing in, I just want to do the sculpting.
There you go.
Well done, Chris.
That's right. So what we do is, for something like this, like a lot of amusement parks or like one-off you do for conventions is they'll CNC out of foam, they'll coat it, they'll clean it up, and they'll paint it, and they call it a day. For stuff like this, we can't really do that. This thing has to last for, who knows, decades, So everything has to be molded and cast in super strong fiberglass, really thick, and engineered. So we had to mold these things, and a lot of times to save money and cost, people will just like brush silicone on it and they'll do a jacket. But because of how precise everything has to fit to come together, we decided not to do that. We decided to do it the hard way, which is laying it up with clay and then molding it and then pouring silicone traditionally, which is a much more costly and time-consuming process, but it also gives you very precise molds. So we just had to do that, but on super large parts. You can see,
wow.
We wrap it, we put chicken wire on there so that the clay will stay as we apply it. And then what we do is that, for us to do a job this big, we can't do it all in-house. We have to have third-party contractors, like third-party fiberglass people to help us and paint companies that do all the stuff just to help us take up the slack. So what we do is we lay it up, we would brush the first coats on there and so that it's all done the way that we want it, and we'll send it out, and people will just spray fiberglass all over it and clean it up and send it back to us. And then we'll open it up, we'll do all the silicone pouring. So that process really saved us a lot of time, which we would not be able to do without without that additional services like that.
Okay, I got to ask, because there's multiple people typing this in here. What is something like this when it's all finished? How much does it weigh?
The actual statue came in at about 2,800 pounds.
Are you kidding me, really?
Yeah, because we had to make it heavy.
Almost 3 tons.
Yeah, we have to make it. Oh well, it's a little bit over a ton.
Yeah.
But we have to make it strong and heavy, because once it's installed, it's an outdoor statue. Once it's installed, again, it has to withstand hurricane winds and all that kind of stuff. So everything was made very heavy on purpose. We can certainly make things lighter, but we didn't want to do that on this. So here you're seeing we're actually, we got the mold back now, and we're getting ready to open it up and clean it up, the seams, so we can start pouring silicone. So this thing is really super heavy, each one of these pieces. And here is the mold is open, and you can see here on the edges of the clay, we're going in, we're cleaning it up, so we can actually pour the silicone. And we went through just drums and drums of silicone. I think one of the bodies took an entire drum, just one section. So these molds weighed like hundreds of pounds. And so you can see here, this is the process now. Once we clean it up, we put all the pieces back on. Those buckets you see are ports for us to pour the silicone. So, yeah, this is quite a pain in the ass to do. And these are the small parts. And you can see here we're getting ready to pour the silicone. And then here, 5 gallons at a time. We basically have a kind of a pipeline where as one person is pouring, the other 5 gallon is being evacuated, another 5 gallons is being mixed. And we just keep going until we fill the mold. And then here's the front half of the body getting put together and sprayed and cleaned up. So there's 2 cleanup processes. The first one where we sand it to the point where it's good enough to be molded. Then after we cast the actual piece, we got to go back there and re-body shop everything and make it super clean and super tight. Because we do in the automotive paint, if the surface is not clean or not smooth, everything shows. So it was, with all these angles and stuff, it was crazy. And then here's the head after we sprayed it. But you can see how the surface is not, see how it's not perfect, right? This all gets sanded down and made perfect. Then we mold it. Then after you cast it, we got to go back one more time just to polish everything up. This is the bottom half of the body. And, a lot of thought went into how we're going to actually make this. Like, for instance, you see how on the bottom here, normally you would think, wow, what a lot of wasted space here. But we had to consider in terms of how we're going to pour the silicone, how we're going to cast everything. So everything had to be straightened to a point where everything will work and give us also room. Like, you can't just pour this whole thing as one, because the pressure and the weight would be so intense that it may just bust the mold open. So all this was thought of ahead of time. So we made these big empty areas so we can actually basically glass this whole thing right onto the base and bolt it all tightly and then seal everything, and then we can pour it in small sections and a little bit at a time to get it up so that you're not pouring, like a whole drum of silicone and that the weight of it might bust the mold open. So there's just a lot of things that, years of experience of doing stuff sort of informs you and help you to prevent big disasters. So here's a couple different angles of it as we're working on it. Yeah, you can see. And then this is the layup process. Again, we lay up the clay, put all the keys in there, and then we divide it up, and then we're going into a Bondo resin, putting the first coat on there before we ship it out to the fiberglass people to basically spray fiberglass over the whole thing. And we'll get it back, and every single section you see is a piece that has to come off and has its own respective silicone area that matches it. So did a lot of this on the show, trucking stuff, back and forth in sections just to get the stuff in there. And then once it's back, once the fiberglass is back, then we open it up, we clean it up, and then we start to do all the clay again for the layup. You can see right here how we made all this supports in here already and sealed everything, so everything is supported. And you see on the bottom here, we've sealed sealed it with more silicone so that we know it's not going to leak out the bottom. Because, man, if you're pouring 55 gallons and you get a leak, it's a really bad day. Yeah, and then here we are pouring it. And that's what the silicone looks like. We've added a bunch of little keys in here that actually contacts the sculpture, just for additional anchors and registration. And here's somebody sitting inside cleaning out the mold. This is just half of the mold. And same process here on the head of the bowl. And then here's one of the leg sections cleaned up. This after we cast it, like here's the casting of the tail. So then we have more body shop to do to get it all finished and cleaned up. Here's a section of the jaw. This is the finished bull head ready for paint. You can see it's much cleaner now and everything's nice and sharp. One of the leg sections. This process, it just seems like it was just never ending. There was so much surface to cover. And so we just kept going. And then, of course, tons of little parts. We had pistons all over. We had little discs that had lights in it. And so there was tons of little molds that we had to make. All these parts that all fit in within it. Here are some of the pistons. It was kind of cool when we were in Miami and you saw these parts put on the bowl. Somebody came up and go, look, he's got lightsabers all over his legs. Okay, so now this is the engineering part of it. This is the armature inside. So this had to be designed to fit inside the 3D model. So that's where, working digital really helps in this process, because having a 3D model already, you can actually build inwards, you can build outwards, So without that, if you have to do it traditionally, it's possible, but it would just take a lot more time. It'll be a much more organic process to do that. So this is what the inner armature looks like as it was modeled. And it was all cut, like a water jet cut out of steel and welded together. And you can kind of see how it sits inside of it so that everything, there's clearance for everything. It comes apart where it needs to come apart. And then after this was done, we had a bunch of metal pieces made that were then, somebody had to crawl inside and then basically affix this armature inside the piece. And I'll tell you, this is no easy task. You talk about pieces that weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You can't lift it by hand. Everything had to be hoisted. So getting giant parts to kind of come together and using whatchamacallit, just, as much manpower as you can to try to get it all fit together with this inside and then locking everything in. It was quite a process. So you can see just how parts are supposed to sit. And again, this is because digital really allowed us to do all this. This is a little T-bar that we had made. Because the way the armature had to be designed, we had to consider, once you hoist this up, for installation, you can't hoist it up and the whole thing does this. Yep. You have to hoist it up in a way that the weight distribution is balanced. So it goes up straight, it comes down straight.
I'll give you a moment to pause. There's a question.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have it.
Steve, I was actually curious about the armature. Is that design, you kind of pseudo-answered it, like when you install it, is it all one piece, or is it made to kind of like plug together so you can ship it there, or is it just shipped as one giant piece there?
No, it actually comes apart. We took all the legs come off, the tail comes off, and the body is actually, I think the body's in two sections. So once we get there, we had to basically take everything off, unpack it, and we had to put it all together, and then had to be hoisted up and put together. There's a video I'll show you of that process as well. So, it's one thing when you have stuff like this, you model, you measure, go, yeah, it all fits well, and then you get to the actual piece, and that little section now is like this big of a hole. You're saying, oh my God, how is this? If you move it like, a few inches this way, that way, everything gets thrown off. So there was a lot of like back and forth, reviewing it, double reviewing it, to get it all put together. Here are some of the steel sections as they were being cut. And each one of these sections, it was heavy. I tried lifting one of the leg armatures by myself, and I couldn't. I had to get another person just to help me lift it. And Dave, as you know, I'm pretty strong. I can lift a whole, 30 pounds. So you can see here now, here you see how the armature is already in this section. So we had to basically put it in one section at a time and then lock it in. One of the things that we did to ensure everything fit properly is, you can see on the bottom here, we have this template. So this informed us of exactly where the feet, has to land. And these cross beams basically allow it so it doesn't slide. So from this, we know once we levitate this over it and the leg starts to go on, the legs have to land exactly here. So we shift everything to fit it all together. So, these are the kind of things that are, they can be trial by fire if you don't think of this stuff ahead of time. So with projects like this, there's a lot of forethought put into the process. We spend like days and days thinking of what else are we not thinking of? What could possibly go wrong if this, and there's just a lot of forethought involved. And then here we have Eric Hooker. He is our welder here. So what you're seeing here is that the armature now is inside, but then we have all these metal pieces now that are going to get welded to the main armature frame and pushed up against the body of the inner fiberglass. And then that gets, once that's all in there tight, doesn't move, then we go back there and re-glass all that back in. So the thing is rock solid and it doesn't move. So you can see how little space there is, even for something this big, because of how big the armature had to be. Yeah, and then we had to design different bases that it can go on because for certain processes, like the base has to slide together and lock in for when we put this together before we can lift it. And then there are bases where it has to come off and go on this base, but the head can go on, and it's like a really complicated puzzle to figure out and do. And here you can see a leg section. You see how the leg is now bolted to the body armature, but it's not part of the leg yet. So now this leg goes in, and it has to key in correctly. And then wherever that sits, then we go in there and we weld it to the inner of the leg. So that all the sections of the body, you see right here how it's missing a panel. We put trapdoors basically everywhere, bottom, sides, foot. So we have access points everywhere that we need to get to in order to work on the interior structure and for installation. And you can see right here how the front half, back half, as we're putting in the armature, and we're still in the process of body shopping it as we go. And then here you can see it's starting to come together. This is, I think this is already now, all the armature has been welded in, so it can actually support its own weight. But for safety, we always still, when we put it together, we always still use the template just to keep the legs from sliding, because you don't want to put too much pressure on the joints. And then here we're getting closer. Again, you can see how we built all these trapdoors. These are all magnetic trapdoors that eventually get all bolted on permanently. So we can always have access to get electricity, wiring, and when we do the final installation in the concrete with the big steel rebars, these are all access points we get into. Yeah, and just drunk tired. So we always try to shoot these fun little videos, walk around, you can see. Just, people are, no matter how hard things get, we try to always stay in good spirits because we know that this project has to end sometime. So, and one of the biggest rewards too, in doing these kind of projects is that at the very end, it's always really kind of cool to see what you've done at the end of the day, because it's a fun thing. Oh, this is the same video. No. And then so these we get into the more of the art side. So these are sort of sample painted sections that we had just painted on different parts that we had laying around for color reference. So we had gone through a black, we'd done like a gray metallic, we had done sort of a black and bluish kind of purple, and just more of a gray, different treatments of metals and bronzes to golds, so that the clients could pick like the colors that they like. This process took quite a long time because there's just a lot of what if we try this, what if we try that, and.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
From online? There's a ton of questions. Did you have an engineer design the structure for the armature?
Yes.
So that's
yeah,
it?
no, we got a real engineer to do it because this all had to be, we had to get a whole thing signed off with certificates, had to be rated. I mean, there was a lot. Then we had to interface with the engineers from the Miami side, the city side, to get the permits, and so it was quite a process. Fortunately, with Miami-Dade College, they own their own property, so they got the permit approved in a week. whereas normally it would take at least 2 to 6 months,
Right.
which would have just ruined the whole thing. So that was one thing that was great about the whole process.
Also, they want to know online, MJ Sculpts wants to know, what do you do with the print, molds, and et cetera after a project like this is done?
Normally, we store them for our clients, and they pay for the storage. And then when they don't want to pay for storage anymore, then we say, well, we're going to have to destroy everything, which we do. And then they pay for the disposal of these molds, because we can't keep them. I mean, they're huge, and they keep it for insurance in case something happens to the statue due to natural disasters or something, and they have to build another one. So for this one in particular, we're storing it for the clients, until they decide they don't want to store it anymore. And we do this with all our clients. We charge them for storage, just in case. So these are all, we did a bunch of different color renditions. Kyle had done some renders, some earlier passes. So these are the final ones that I did in Photoshop. It was all done in 2D. Where basically we had decided, okay, we're going to have black, gloss black. We're going to have gray sections. We're going to have chrome sections. We're going to have bronze sections. So now it's kind of like, my job to kind of take it and put it all where they're supposed to go. So using because this had changed quite a bit from the original concept that Furio had done. The clients wanted to change the placement of some of the stuff. So I went back and did a bunch of different versions, and so this is the final version. And we used this as a map, so that for when we painted the prototype, the miniature prototype, we can say, okay, this is chrome, this is gray, this is whatever, so that there's just a map of this whole thing that we can use as reference. So this is a 16-inch, I guess it's a 1/10 scale model of the bull that we printed. So we use this as a guide, so that Emily Dorosky, who was our studio painter at the time, she painted this, and from this is what we use to paint the big one as a guide. And then here it is. We had contracted out a company that paint autos for us to paint this, because we didn't have the facility to paint something this big and to have the environment. So we interfaced with their painters, and we showed them how to use the chrome paint colors and we provided them with all the colors and the paints, and then we showed them how to do the chrome and to do the bronze and all that stuff. So they practiced a few times, and then from there, they did the paint process for us. And again, this is one of those situations where we just didn't have time or the facility to do it within our time frame. So these came in very handy, having a third party help us out with stuff like that.
COVID too, after we did, but not from us. So she was in Texas.
Yeah, so this is just the first coat of the black that went on. And then this is the final finished without us doing the small detail paint stuff, which we did in-house after we got these parts back. And these are light panels. I think Julie Shaw, she modeled these. We had a ton of different size and different design light panels all over the body, because he lit up, and we had done programming so that it can do a variety of different colors. It can do like pulsing and flashing and all that. We had a whole program for this. And then, of course, we had to cast endless clear parts that would have to be fitted onto the model. And here's a test for one of the eyes. This was 3D modeled, and then we molded and cast it so that we have all this nice sort of etching detail in the eyes. And here's a light panel and how it all kind of fit together. And this is the final look. And here we're gluing on the head. So once the head is all put together and mounted in the metal, we put it all together, bolt it all permanently. We caulk everything. The whole thing has been caulked and weather stripped so that no water can leak inside. Even the internal steel armature, we had to brush a lot of coats of this anti-rust coating, so to prevent humidity from getting in. We drill holes in the bottom of it, so in case some water does get in, it'll naturally funnel down to the lowest point and drain out at the bottom. I mean, so tons of stuff we had to consider making an outdoor statue. You can see here we are putting the head together. All the electronics have been wired now. Caulking's been put on to seal. and we're doing the final mounting. And once that's done, somebody had to go back in there and then weld a couple more small points here and there through these tiny holes. Luckily, you know, we managed to get in and do that. So here we're putting on final details. Like we had all these metal bolts all over. There was something like 150. So I went in there and I drilled out all these holes everywhere, and then we installed all these things. Every one of these ports had to be cleaned up, pre-fitted with all the lights, and they had to be all caulked in. I mean, it was a lot more work than it looks. And then here's the finished statue right before we took it apart to pack it for shipping. And shipping was a whole other ordeal. We had to hire a logistic company, and they had to do all this kind of insurance ratings and all this crazy paperwork. They had to get approved before we're even allowed to put it on a truck. And then here you can see the pieces packed. We decided to not build crates for it. Instead, we made these metal bases for every one of these things that were basically all locked in so it wouldn't move. It was supported with pads in the bottom. This was because the space that it took to put this. We had 2 full trucks just to transport this from LA to Miami. And this is on location at the convention center at the Crypto. This is Luca Panizzi. He was one of the small agency. He was the one that came up with the idea for this whole campaign. So we give him the honor of unpacking the unpacking the head, just so you can see it all finished for the first time. And then here's Cleve. We're putting on the T-bar. And as we're taking it starting to put it together and getting ready to be lifted onto the platform. So you can see we're fixing the T-bar in right now. And then here's a giant crane. This is just getting off the base. You notice that the legs aren't on there yet. So while it was still levitated, we had to put the legs on before it can actually come back down. You can see just the amount of work it takes just to make these platforms, just to hold every single piece. And these are all solid, like heavy-duty metal steel plates and stuff. And then here now, the legs are on. And you can see the trapdoors are off. So we bolt everything on and put all the pieces back on. And so this is the platform that was designed and built. I had to also coordinate or direct this platform as well to make sure that it gets built and delivered on time and assembled on the convention site on the day that our bull arrives. And this is the unveiling by Mayor Francis Suarez.
And so now, without further ado, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the future of finance.
Oh my gosh. All those hours, all that.
Wild. Yes. That's wild.
Woo. Yeah, so after the convention was over, then we had to take it apart, repack it, and then drive down to I think it was 10 miles further south, and then reassemble it again, but this time on a concrete slab that was designed specifically for it at the Miami-Dade College.
So that's for the people inside the chat online. They're wondering where this is. You can actually see it physically at the Miami-Dade College.
Yeah.
It sits there in all its glory.
It's there right on the corner. Anybody can go up there and look at it. And yeah, it's a permanent installation there for as long as they want to keep it. So, and this is us after it was over. We're so happy.
Way to go. Yeah, make some noise. Louder.
Okay,
Jeez.
so that concludes this presentation. And then I brought some additional stuff to show that I think are...
Please do.
Just...
Can I do one thing before you do?
Yeah.
Let's get all of our energy. I know it's the morning on Saturday, but let's give them a huge round of applause. That was a monumental task.
Oh, thank you.
And Steve, Steve, it really looked like you and your team had a ball.
We had a balls, sure. And so this is, I'll run through these relatively quickly. But these are, my studio, we also do specialty costumes, and we do creatures and makeups and whatever. But I know this is ZBrush Summit, so I only brought stuff that show how we integrate ZBrush into our workflow. So we did, a second. What? Why isn't this working? Okay, Adobe Photoshop.
Oh, it's not showing up.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's get that up on the screen, guys.
Yeah, I don't know why this isn't
Just 1 second.
PNG. Oh, okay. I should have changed that to JPEG.
There we go.
Okay. Sorry, it's loading.
Thank you.
So we did 3 characters for the Shazam Fury of the Gods. We helped costume designer Louise Mingenbach with the Daughters of Atlas. And let's see, maybe I can just, here we go. Okay. Okay, I don't know what's doing here, but let me just I'll skip those photos. But yeah, this is the PNG. For some reason, it's not loading up. So we did, this is Helen Mirren. She played Hespera. And so this is Kyle Brown. And we had basically Kyle Brown. We had a French artist named Moni Kazemiya, who I work with a lot, and she's still doing stuff for me. And then we have, of course, Julie Shaw on this project. And so we basically, we did scans of the actresses. And then from here, we started to model based on the designs that were given to us by the costume designer. Let me go for here. You can see the different stages. This is Kyle. And as we're working closer and closer to the look of it, and I think this is getting close to the final, they really wanted this battered, kind of old armor for her, since she's the oldest of the three daughters. And then here is what do we call these things again?
Shin guards.
Yeah, not shin guards. They have another word for it, huh? Yeah, that's right.
Well done.
Yeah. So the Greaves, yeah.
No way I was going to remember that.
I know these by heart, but this show was so traumatic, I think I just decided to forget it. So here are some sample finishes. All the ladies, when you make costume for the ladies, everything has to be a soft urethane. So the comfort is really a huge thing. So all these were made with different sureness of urethanes, from the softest, like 30, all the way to maybe, I think 60 was about as hard as we've gone, because we didn't want to go very hard. So you can see all the different finishes on here. These are just the first coating of the gold, and before we went back and darkened a bunch of stuff. And then here's her costume in progress. We had done these scale mail. We originally sculpted it in clay, a bunch of different designs. And then once the design was approved, and then we went back, I think Julie modeled these. We went back and we modeled them in 3D and printed a bunch of them, and then just to see, then we string it together the way you normally would do with scale mail, and then try to move it and see how it reacts. And if it's not right, we go back and readjust it and reprint it and try it. And I think we went through 7 iterations before we finally ended up with one that actually looked right and worked right. And then from there, we printed about 3,000 of these things in-house, and we just used the actual 3D prints. And then so we strung it all together and made a bunch, because we had to do about 16 costumes for like multiples for these characters. And so we had to make a lot of duplicates. So yeah, here's a work in progress. And this is what she looks like on the film at the end of the day.
Yeah, right on. Louder. That's crazy.
And and here's Helen. I got to say, Helen was wonderful. She was a real class act. She did a few things for us that I can't speak about, but it's like she's just amazingly kind, generous person. I'm very considerate. So it was a real pleasure working with her. In fact, all 3 ladies were great. Lucy Liu was really awesome. sweet. And then Rachel Zegler, everyone was just great. So this is Calypso, which is Lucy Liu's character. In a film schedule like this, it was so insane because we didn't have cast at the time when we were making Lucy's costume. We didn't know it was going to be Lucy Liu. So we had to start because it was only 16 weeks to do these costumes, and it was a lot of work. And so we started modeling. I think Moni did, she did this one here. So once it was modeled and more or less kind of approved, then we finally got Lucy. Like, it was insane. It was like a month before she shoots. So then once we got her model, we had to then take all this and put it back on her and then rework everything. And it was just, it's like, I don't recommend that process. If you can do it on the actual body you're going to work with, hold out for that, because when you're doing a one and transfer, you might as well start over again. It was insane. Here's her gauntlet that we had modeled. And then here's one of the second to the last fittings we did in Atlanta on Lucy. And then this is Rachel Zegler. This is Anthea. This, again, Moni did this one too. The chest piece we ended up changing last minute, and so we had to take the print and then take it into clay and re-sculpt it and rework it because of a design change. But for the most part, everything was what it is. One thing that was really fun was, here's her gauntlet. This is also Moni. And this is the final urethane piece. It's very, very flexible and light. And then here's, these are her peruges that on her skirt. So we had to basically, these were like laser cut, faux ostrich skin. All this stuff, all these little holes on this mesh, this was all laser cut. Leather, different leather materials. These are all modeled in-house and then printed and cast. This here was also modeled in-house, printed, and then we made these urethane mother of pearl type sections. I'll show you some more. Like, here's some flaps for her skirt. So we did all these with a process of different layers of urethanes and different mica powders and whatever, and then went back and hand finished it. So when you moved it around, it was really beautiful. It really reflected light. And this is Rachel in the finished costume. I think this was the last fitting that we did with her. So you can see here. Yeah, I think this one shows just a little bit better. Yeah, so it just has a nice kind of finish to it. So that concludes that part.
That's amazing, Steve. Just let you know that there's... Steve, we got 2 minutes.
Okay, then let me just...
They're telling me to tell you got 2 minutes left.
Okay, so let me just show one last thing then.
I can listen to you talk about this all day. How about another round of applause, though? Yes.
So let me just show this. This is one of the... here's Moni, by the way, so you can see what she looks like. She's in France. I met her, I think it was like 10 years ago. She came to intern with me. She had not done digital yet. She was just learning how to sculpt traditional clay. She hung out with us for about a month or two. And she went back and then decided she wanted to learn ZBrush. And she's just become a powerhouse. I mean, I call her Mighty Moni. It's my nickname for her. So let me show you this video really quick. This is one of the most beautiful statues I think we have made to date. Oops, let me go back here. And this was for Tencent. It's one of the mobile games that they put out. my wife. Honor of King, yeah.
I don't know about you, but I want one. Wow.
Yeah, if I can just show this one last video, so you can really kind of see what it looks like, and I can kind of just talk you through really quick. So this whole statue, you know, she has like 6-foot long ponytail that goes into these little lamps that would light up and has light effect. She has a 6-foot long staff that has a connection to a 2-foot orb that has this tornado inside with floating goldfish that also has lighting effect. And all this in her pose, she's leaning quite forward. So this entire statue of her is balanced on 1 inch of steel at the ball of her 1 foot. So it was all engineered to balance all together. And then the water was traditionally sculpted. Like, she was digitally sculpted by Moni, and then we had to clay press everything and go back and, you know, re-sculpt everything and make it higher fidelity and all the textures. And then all her costumes was all digitally sculpted. This big orb, well, this was all digital. Eyes were handmade, silicone. Yeah, the water itself was about 22 pieces, separate pieces of clear urethane that had to be assembled and then made structural to support everything, and then painted and all that kind of stuff. So it was quite
blowing my mind. This whole presentation has been a mind-blowing.
And there's more shit, but you know, I'm out of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed.
Come on, put your hands together louder! Unbelievable! Wow! Steve Wang.
Yeah.
Steve Wang. Wow.
Thank you, guys.
The
very
action
much.
continues. I can't believe, I have to say, across such a large spectrum of projects, the level of like mastery and the people, they're still smiling. They're going to clap some more. It's such a diverse body of work. Give them another round of applause, man. Yeah, just phenomenal. What a wonderful presentation. Let's, we're going to do some giveaways in a moment here, so sit tight. You want to ask? Okay, let's sneak in one question here, David Igo.
Sure.
Well, it's less a question and just to speak to Steve as someone who's never worked with him, but been to his studio a few times and seen stuff that he's worked on. He's always been very pro his team and his artists, and seeing in his presentation, giving credit to everyone. Even when he did one of his big pieces for Blizzard, it wasn't like Steve Wang's big statue. It was the entire art team was credited on there. And it's just awesome because a lot of companies and studios don't do that. And Steve, just thank you for being a very pro artist business person. We need more people like you. So.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Five.
yeah. I mean, you know, I've started from, you know, the ground up, and you know, over the years, I think what we do is, as artists, we all contribute to big projects, and a lot of times we don't get credit for it. And I always feel like that's kind of not cool. So whenever I do a project, I try to credit everybody because I think, you know, everybody has a career, right? Everybody has to have credentials to show to go to the next job. And I think it's a disservice if we hold on to photos and don't allow them to show the work that they've contributed. So I try to be very open with everyone. My only rule is don't post until it's okay to post. So we don't get in trouble, but otherwise, post away, you know? So.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, are you going to slide in one more? We got time for one more before we do the giveaway.
What's the most personal project you've ever worked on with your team?
Most personal project? I don't know about a personal project, because mostly, you know, because we don't, these projects are so expensive to do. Mostly we do it on commissions. So I don't really do that many. Most personal projects I usually do a lot of it myself. And if there's things that I can't do, then I'll have my team help me with. But for me, every one of these projects are very personal, you know, because I have to art direct everything and me and my business partner, we engineer everything. And as you can say, I drive Julie crazy, but she knows the process really well now. I can give her something and say, I need this thing cut up, I need to be key, we need to do all this stuff. She understands in the real physical world how things work now. So this takes, a lot of time to kind of like to train and then to introduce our side of the physical world into the digital realm. So, it's back to your question. It's everything for me is personal, and even projects. Like one thing is that I pride myself in. Even if I'm doing projects I absolutely just have no interest in and don't like, I'll still do my best because I consider myself a professional, and I'm being paid to do a job. So I always give it 100% no matter what. So,
yeah. We actually have time for a few questions. So, there's hands flying up now. Now we've done it. Hang on a second here. That's fine.
This is getting down to the technical on doing the Miami Bowl. I probably need to talk with Ms. Shaw about that, but she's the one that knows how to calculate the directionality when you're making molds and the weights of the pieces as you choose how to cut it all apart. It just seems really impossible for me to imagine it. So
yeah, it's actually there's quite a bit involved in that, and it's not just one department because you can't figure out the weight of a fiberglass piece in digital. Because that's all kind of, so a lot of times, even when we get quotes for the stuff, we have to figure out square footage of how much it's actually going to take to do this. So we've had basically formulas to calculate a lot of this kind of stuff. It's getting into math, which I absolutely hate, but, it's part of what we have to do. And anything we don't know how to do, we'll hire people who do to come in, and we explain the process, how we need to do it, whatever, and then they use their expertise. So it's never like a one person does everything kind of situation, especially a project this big. I mean, it's a smart thing to hire really good, experienced people and build your team so everyone knows their job, everyone knows how to do their part of it. So, yeah.
Yes, I see another arm flying to the cosmos.
So it looks like all the engineering for something as large as the Miami Bowl is absolutely insane. How narrow are the tolerances on a statue of that size? Because obviously you got to have the room for it all to fit together. But like, are we talking like inches? Or are we talking like millimeters of tolerance here?
I think when things get bigger, there's more tolerance. When you get really small and precise, you just have so much little space. We just finished this prototype time machine thing we built for a client, and this thing is so small and has all these parts, seats and levers and all this crap in it. Like if it's not precise, you start to get into problems. But what we found with this was that if something wasn't exactly perfect, which happens all the time with big things, we were able to okay, we'll adjust here, maybe we'll fill this part in, we'll do this. We can still kind of fix it and make it work fine. These are all things that I thought before when I was younger, when you look at a house, like how perfect you thought, oh man, the house is perfect, the way they frame everything. And then I actually went and looked at my house, and I thought, my God, everything is crooked, And then I realized how much they get away with things. And then you can look at public buildings, and you start to kind of see what really happens. It's like things are never as precise as we think they are. And granted, you have to have a certain amount of precision. But again, there's always room for wiggle, which you need, because nothing fits perfectly. Because when you have something this big and it changes hands, it goes from digital to now foam to then fiberglass, the silicone. Like things just change. It's just going to happen. So you definitely have to have the tolerances.
These are great questions. Get them while you can. Is that yes? Here, hey, Mark.
Hey, not to be specific on costs and all, but I always wondered how the heck do you give a price for like that bowl project? Is it you have to figure out and then give them a price and then stay within that? Do you give them a range of per day, per month, I never understood how you break all that
Right.
down.
Well, the way we budget is when you're budgeting something, you're guessing and you're going by your experiences. And then you have to go by certain unwritten rules like, if I think it costs this much, it's really actually going to cost this much. And so you have to double it or triple it or whatever formula that you're used to doing. And then after you do that, then you have to deal with the reality of, we can't afford that much. So how much can you really do it for? And then you start to kind of haggle back and forth and and you have two parties trying to figure out how can we make this work. And sometimes, you know, the reality is sometimes you get a job done, you make really good money, and sometimes you get it done and you lost your shirt, you know, because the one thing is everything we do is a prototype. You know, no one's built this before in the entire world. Not exactly that. And so the process, it's, you know, I don't know, it's always more complicated than you think. No matter how much experience you have, it's always more complicated. And so I go by rules that I already know. And then it's just a matter of haggling and just going, you know, I really need this much. And again, like when we had the COVID hit us, it totally screwed us up. We lost 2 weeks in a schedule we didn't have. We had half a crew. And so we had to figure out other ways of like, well, how do we make up for that? Maybe we can do a few things differently here. We had to adjust. So, you know, ultimately at the end, it's always about the end game because you can't miss that deadline. That deadline has to be adhered to no matter what. And so in my entire career, we've never missed a deadline. It's always done on time. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can clap real loud for that one. Mm-hmm. And to be completely honest, speaking of deadlines, we made it.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Yeah. Sorry, Mayor of Miami, but, you know, 3, 2, 1. But it's a disappearing bowl. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Steve, thanks again on behalf
Thank
of myself
guys
and
very
everyone
much.
around the world and the
it's been
thousands
really
of
fun.
attendants. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.